Peace be with you. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, I am very grateful to God for being together and for having this session. I thank Professor Benny from Sofia for his presentation and for his unity and for being part of Wings of Unity from the beginning, a very important part of Wings of Unity. So, when we finished round 13, which was about Pact of Love, I suggested to have round 14 on the School of God. And we had some exchange about what does it mean, and then we decided to carry on. Of course, I said at some point to Benny that if, for example, Piero wants to suggest another topic, it's completely okay. So we had on Sunday, 8th of June, the 14th round of Wings of Unity about the School of God. And Piero had a very good presentation. I hope you can find at least the file. He gave it in English. Maybe, Carlo, can you get it from Benny and share? It was very good speech by Piero Coda about the School of God, and then I had, Sister Esra had her presentation, which was very good. And then I had my presentation. Normally what I do is I try to be the last one to listen to Piero and others, and then I speak. And many times I never can anticipate, even a day before, how things going to evolve and what's going to happen and what I'm going to. I know some points, I have some ingredients, but some extra ingredients come, and then the recipe also changes. So what I am going to share with you is not exactly what I said in Sofia. So there are some points there, some points I don't mention, because some points were very important to hear Piero first. For example, when Piero emphasized on wisdom in the School of God, and Sofia, so, or that the fact that the School of God is situated in the, you can say, womb, or in the, in the father, or like a womb, or in father bosom. So I said something from Islamic perspective relating to that, but I now try to say it in the way that suits our week of unity here, but the core message, especially the final part, is the same. But I pray to God to help me to deliver it and guide me further. And I especially requested to have this session, and I asked Amata if there can be a moment that our Focolare brothers and sisters who are here, maybe some of them don't take part in all the sessions, but if they can be present for this session, because this is very much related to what Mariapolis Piero is about, or all other Mariapolis, to be a school of God. So hopefully together we can better understand the plan of God. So, from Quranic perspective, God is not just the creator. God is also the first teacher. And in chapter Ar-Rahman, that maybe we can have on the screen, we see that God, first of all, is referred to as Ar-Rahman, because there are two ways to refer to God in the Quranic, understanding as a proper noun. One is to say Allah, one is to say Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is used sometimes as a proper noun, sometimes as an adjective, as an attribute. When we say Ar-Rahim, when we say Al-Alim, Al-Qadir, we refer to God's knowledge, power, etc. These are attributes of God. But as a proper noun, like what you put in your birth certificate or ID, okay? In your ID, you don't put your attributes, you put your proper noun. We have two for God. One is Allah, one is Ar-Rahman. And Ar-Rahman comes from the root mercy, Rahmah. And it's very interesting that among all different qualities of God, his proper noun is taken from the root of mercy. And Rahim, which is the womb of the mother or ladies, comes from the same root, Rahim. And for the kinship, in Arabic we say Zawil Arham, people who come from the same womb. So womb is very sacred because it's where you are receiving life, love, everything. So in a sense, we are all in the womb of God, in the mercy of God. So in this chapter, which is called Ar-Rahman, God says, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. Is it on the screen? خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. God, who is introduced as Ar-Rahman, has done several things. Of course, he has done many things, but several are mentioned here. The first is taught the scripture. The second is created mankind. And the third is taught how to communicate. If you want to go by chronological order, maybe you should first say God created mankind and then taught the scripture and communication. Or even communication can come before teaching the scripture. But this is not by chronological order, this is by significance. God taught the book, the scripture. Had it not been that God had the plan of teaching us and guiding us through His words, maybe He would not have created us. Because God does not have any creature unless He has a plan for its guidance. Moses was asked by Pharaoh, when he went with Aaron to Pharaoh, who is your Lord? Man Rabbukuma ya Musa. Oh Moses, who is your Lord? Because Pharaoh was claiming to be the Lord. Moses said, Rabbuna alladhi a'ta kulla shay'in khalqahu thumma hada. Our Lord is the one that gave everything its due creation and then guided it. So God would not create anything unless has a plan in place for guidance. Even insects, even birds, they'll all have their guidance in different ways. But the most comprehensive guidance is for human beings. Through instinct, through intellect, and through a scripture, through words of God, revelation. So, God taught the scripture, created human beings, and taught them how to communicate. Human life without ability to communicate cannot continue. And even if it continues, will be very, very low quality. all our sciences, technology, culture, arts, or are because of being able to communicate. Actually, these are expressions of us saying something. Sometimes we communicate through words, sometimes through art, sometimes in writing, sometimes in gesture. But if we were not able to communicate, we could not, live together in societies. So, there is great emphasis on teaching. Teaching, creating, teaching. So, God being a teacher is not less important than God being creator. Okay, it's very important. And we can take lots of lessons and implications out of this. For example, how as parents, how as community, we should have great emphasis on education. And this education, of course, is holistic. Also, among the very first verses which were revealed to the Prophet in Surah Al-Alaq, we find emphasis on teaching. Sheikh Khodami explained the day before yesterday that in Mecca and also the whole region in Arab Peninsula, literacy was not very common. The number of people who were able to read and write were not many. But the very first passage which was revealed to the Prophet starts with read. Iqra. Read in the name of your Lord. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق, created the man from something very simple, from kind of clot of blood. And then اقرأ وربك الأكرم. Please listen very carefully. When God says read in the name of your Lord who created mankind, he doesn't use Al-Akram. Al-Akram means the most honorable, the most generous. Okay? So, for creation, he doesn't say this. But when it comes to teaching, he says, اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. Your Lord who taught how to use pen, or taught with pen. So Muslim scholars, exegetes say, this shows that to be a teacher is so important that when God refers to himself as a creator, doesn't say he is Akram. But when he talks about teaching, he says he's Akram. Means the generosity of God is more received in his teaching than his creation. From this you can imply that our spiritual fathers, our teachers who teach us how to be a better person, to be a better servant of God, have greater rights upon us than our biological fathers. Yeah? Who important is a biological father only or a spiritual father? A spiritual father is more important. Sometimes, of course, our biological fathers are our first spiritual teachers as well. But imagine if someone gives you, birth, father, mother gave you birth, and they disappear. And there is someone who is teaching you, guiding you, upbringing you. Which one is more important? Certainly the second is more important. So, God is introduced in the Quran in a very clear, strong way as a teacher. And his teaching includes how to write, how to communicate, how to understand everything that we need for our salvation, for our happiness in this world and the hereafter. But what is amazing is that when we go further in Islamic theology, we realize that actually creation and teaching are not separable from each other. Those who are not very well trained theologically, they think God created us, and then creation finishes, and then he guides us, or he maintains us, he gives us sustenance, material sustenance, spiritual sustenance, etc. So they think creation finishes by birth or by ensoulment of embryo. But the reality is that creation is another side of the same coin. God's sustenance and guidance are also through creation, because God is creating us in an ongoing process. Still, we are being created by God. In every moment, we are created by God. God does not create us and throw us in this world and then says, okay, now I just send you food, or I send you, teaching. We are never separated from God. It's like a river. You think this river is fixed, but it's an ongoing flow of water. You never see the same water twice. Yeah? If you look at the one point, it's always new water. We are continuously being created by God. In my lecture about union with God and what grows it, I said that we all come from God. All human beings come from God. We have perfect origin. But when we say we come from God, it doesn't mean at the time of birth or few months before when my soul was created. We all come from God in every moment. So creation and teaching are two sides of the same coin, and they go hand in hand. Therefore, this world, this universe, not only is where God shows his creativity to us, but is also the school of God. The whole world is for educating us. Everything in this world is giving you lessons from God if you are able to tune into this curriculum. So, when you open your eyes as a child, and even before that, but to make it more simple, I say, at least because even when you are in the womb of mother, God is guiding and teaching you. There are many things that an embryo understands. But more obviously, when we are born and we look around, we start learning. God is teaching us. Till we die, God is always teaching us. We may think a religious school is where you register and there are staffs and teachers and curriculum, classrooms, books, etc. Yes, that is a formal school. Otherwise, the whole world is a school. The whole world is a place for learning and sharing. And if we are wise, actually, in our day-to-day life, we learn more than in the classroom. Yeah? Our prophet didn't go to any school. He didn't have any formal education for a purpose that God had, to stop people later saying that he has received his information from teachers, human teachers. But it doesn't mean that he was not in the school of God. He was 40 years in the school of God. He was reflecting, meditating in Mecca or going to the cave during the trips. So, God's education is not limited to any time or any space. God's education sometimes comes through people that you know and love, sometimes people that you know and maybe don't love, sometimes from people that you don't know. From any source it's possible to be receiving education from God. If I am wise, even my enemies can teach me. Maybe without them knowing or even wanting. Maybe my enemies don't want me to learn something good, but I can learn from God through them. If there is a catastrophe, still I can learn many things through this catastrophe. Maybe Chiara, if it was not during the war, an experience of war, maybe this idea of unity and love would not have come to her so strongly, at least. Or maybe not at all. Who knows? So sometimes a tragedy, a catastrophe can teach you. Our prophet lost his father before birth. He was an orphan. Soon he lost his mother. And then he was under care of his grandfather, who also died soon. And then his uncle. So he was an orphan. But I am sure to be an orphan played a great role for him to be so kind and merciful in his life. So no one welcomes to be an orphan, and we wish no child becomes orphan. But even to be an orphan can, in the end, be an opportunity to make a stronger connection with God and with people. So something that can be a tragedy can lead to something good. Indeed, it's up to us, because God is there to teach us whether it's something good or bad. In good days and bad days, the school of God has no holidays. Yeah? It's always open. Day and night, we can learn. The prophets were also teachers. There are many cases in the Quran that God refers to him teaching the prophets and then prophets teaching us. There are ways that God teaches us directly, there are ways that God teaches us through the prophets. So he is the prime teacher, but we have also the prophets, the messengers, we have our saints, we have our scholars, we have our religious guides. So we receive all from God education. Some of the characteristics of God's education is this. His teachings are in full compliance with our innate nature. We call fitra. In Islamic terminology, we refer to human distinct nature, what makes us different from animals. We refer to it as fitra. So our humanity, pure humanity, is called fitra. Anything to be successful, anything to be able to remain, needs to be in compliance with that humanity in us. If world religions have survived thousands of years, is because they were not in conflict with our fitra, our innate nature. I'm not saying they were all perfectly in compliance with our fitrah, but at least in large, they were not in conflict with our fitrah. Otherwise, they were not able to continue. Anything which is not compatible with our fitrah will collapse. Like many schools of thought, like communism. Communism didn't last. Why? Because it was not compatible with our fitrah. So God's education is completely in harmony with the way He has created us. Because He's a teacher who is also creator. So for us who want to work, for example, in religious education, we have to be very careful to observe human nature and nourish it instead of fighting it. Also, his teaching comes through revelation and intellect. I think it was Father Joseph who talked about reason and faith. So we believe in harmony between revelation and reason. Especially in Shia Islam, the role of reason is very, very important. Another aspect of God's education is that it doesn't only focus on mind. Unfortunately, some form of education, they just give you information. Just they give you something to fill your mind with. God's education may start with mind, but certainly doesn't stop there, because the main aim is change and transformation of heart. And God, better than anyone else, knows the significance of our heart. We may think the main thing is body, or some people may go further and say, no, body is not the main thing, but your mind is the main thing. But we say, even the mind is not the main thing is the heart. And if you want to understand whether a person is very good or not, is pious or not, even is wise or not, you cannot look at their body or face or language or words. You cannot even judge by what is in their mind. For example, if they have a library of all the good books in their mind, you cannot say this is a good person. The only way you can understand whether a person is really good or not is if you have access to their heart. Therefore, we think it's up to God to judge, because I don't have access to the heart of people. Sometimes I think someone is bad because I see bad words, rude words, I don't know, bad actions, but maybe in the heart this person is very clean, doesn't have, just proper ways of, behavior. And sometimes someone speaks perfectly, looks very nice, but who knows, maybe in the heart is very impure. So, when we treat people, we give them credit of doubt. We should assume everyone is good unless proved otherwise. But we are not really sure. God knows. Even at the same time that we can look into our heart and find out our problems, but this is not easy, even for yourself. Because human heart has many different layers. And sometimes it takes you years to know what is hidden in an underlying layer of heart. For example, maybe I think I am a nice person because I am kind, I am caring, I am following the rules, laws, etc. But if a war happens, if there is shortage of food, maybe now I act differently. Now I become selfish. I want to have lots of food in my home. When there was no war, I was generous, but now I'm selfish. So it doesn't mean that all of a sudden I became selfish. It means that selfishness was there in a deeper layer of the heart, but there was no way to emerge. When I am troubled, It triggers that and it comes out. You see, many times, for example, people drive very nicely. But if there is no electricity, for example, no power, there is no light on the crossroad, and it's very hot, they have no AC, then how do they drive? The same people that used to drive very nicely, now you see they drive very differently. Not everyone, but many people. So sometimes I use this example, our heart is like a pond, a pool, okay? When it's left for many days, all the dirt go down and you see clean water. But if someone steers from the bottom this pond, you see it becomes muddy. Many of us are like this. When there is crisis, you can see the true face of people. So, in God's education, heart is the center of attention. And this is why then ethics and spirituality become more important than teaching physics and maths, or than even teaching doctrines. Teaching doctrines is a way to purify your heart, but if you stop at learning the doctrines and reviewing and memorizing and even repeating 100 times, but not letting it change your heart, so it's not making you a better person. Sometimes actually knowing more without acting makes you worse. We believe knowledge is the greatest veil between us and God. Knowledge which can take us towards God has the potential of distracting us from God more than anything else. So I can be even teaching spirituality and mysticism. I can write books on spirituality and mysticism, but it doesn't mean that I'm a spiritual person. Sometimes I'm just, enjoying talking about this, teaching this, but I'm not working on my own heart. Therefore, the Quran, in chapter the Sun, swears 11 times. 11 times God swears. And then he says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. The one who has purified the soul is successful. The one who has not taken care of his or her soul is going to be disappointed. So, the focus of education must be on change of the heart, on becoming a better person, not someone with more information. Therefore, formation is more important than giving information. One of the things that I admire about Focolare spirituality, and I said to our Shia brothers and sisters, is their formation. If you had first-class universities in the world, that tens of or hundreds of thousands of people go and get different certificates, it was not that important for me. When I see that you can have this beautiful formation, that wherever I travel in the world, I find the same spirit of love and unity. So formation of the movement, I think, is very, very important part of the movement. And if this formation was not there, there was no consistency. And few years after the demise of Chiara, the movement would have collapsed. So formation is very important, because formation is holistic and would not be ending unless you are sure something has happened in the heart. Till the heart is transformed, formation should not stop. And even when the heart is transformed, the formation should continue because we have tendency to go back. No one is free from need for being reminded and reminded. We need all go to formation. Maybe you are 20 years in the movement, maybe you are formator, but you yourself need formation. Formation never stops. We all need to go through formation. Maybe in different levels, maybe in different ways, maybe shorter, but till we die, we need always formation. Another aspect of God's education is it gives you tranquility. One of the best signs of seeing whether someone is a graduate of some levels, because this has no end, but at least you have completed some levels and graduated from some levels of God's education, is tranquility and peace in the heart. Heart has to be transformed, but one sign, one fruit of transformation of the heart is peace, serenity, tranquility. You can find who are closer to God by seeing how tranquil they are, how peaceful they are. And of course, this can be more obvious in the times of turbulence. Yeah? When we are having birthday party, you cannot check the tranquility of people. Yeah? Because everyone is happy, we are going to eat cake and, enjoy ourselves. When there is conflict, when there is war, when there is tension, when there is a scarcity of resources, when there is misunderstanding, then tranquility and lacking tranquility can be tested. Unfortunately now, even when we are having, parties, we lack tranquility. Even in parties we can fight, But still you can manage to look nice and peaceful when there's a party. But if you have dispute with someone, with your neighbor, with your spouse, I don't know, etc., to remain peaceful and tranquil is very difficult. But that is the sign of making some progress in God's education. And then a very important aspect of this transformation of the heart and gaining inner peace is that you can then remain in peace with others and establish peace outside. Any man or woman who has studied in the school of God, who has been trained in the school of God, would be building peace, would offering love to others. God says to the Prophet, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. Because of you receiving mercy from God, you have become very gentle and lenient with them. Before Islam, the people in that society were looking at mercy and kindness and love as a weakness. For them, the people who lived in desert and even in the cities in Arab Peninsula, to show love was a sign of weakness. You have to be harsh. Even nowadays, some people teach this. They say if you want to protect yourself, try to be very harsh and strong, because if you are humble, people take advantage. Unfortunately, in this modern society, sometimes they're like this. If you are a kind staff, then other staff may take advantage of you. If you are a kind student, but this is not godly way. We need to be kind and soft and loving. So once a man saw the Prophet kissing his grandchild, he said, I have, I don't know, 9 or how many children, I have never kissed them. Can you imagine? Someone has children, 9 or more, and he has never kissed them. And the Prophet said, Man la yarham, la yurham. If you don't show love, you will not be shown love. You have to show love to your children, to your wife, husband, in-laws, friends, neighbors. They used to bury their daughters alive. They used to loot and attack. God gave so much of love and mercy to the Prophet that he became rahmatan lil alameen, a mercy for all mankind, not only for Muslims, not only for Arabs, for mankind. And over years, few years, the Prophet so much pumped love in that society that these people were changed. They were happy to die for each other. There was a battle that some soldiers were injured. And then a person went to give water to one of these injured soldiers. Because when you are injured, you are very also thirsty. He gave some water. He said, give it to my brother. He went to the second soldier. He said, give it to my brother. By the time he reached the last one, all of them died. They preferred to die and not take that water and give it to someone else. So he managed to change them into people that the Quran says became ruhama'u bainahum. They became very kind and merciful to each other. So this is God's education. A good teacher, when it goes to a place that there are lots of conflicts and tensions, over years you have to be able to bring love and mercy and forgiving to that people. But if you go to a place and just bring tension or division or suspicion, you are not from a school of God. You are from a school of Satan, because Satan has main task of dividing people and causing hatred among people in his school. And also, one aspect of God's education is that God's education helps everyone to flourish. We need to help people to realize their talents. Although we all have common talents, but every human being is unique. Even siblings may not have the same talents. It is the job of the educators to help people to discover their talents and flourish them. God has complete plan in his education, in his system, in his school, for every person to become the best version of himself or herself. His plan for every person is unique. Although there are common elements, God's plan for you and God's plan for me can have lots of common elements, but they are not the same. Every person has a unique, comprehensive plan, and if we listen to God, then God would take us to the best potentials that we have. So, these are some aspects and characteristics of God's education. Now, I want to move to the second part of my talk, when now it's about Muslim and Christianity. If we Muslims and Christians follow God in his way of educating us, by appreciating our common humanity, our fitrah, number one. Do we have common humanity or not? We have, certainly we have. If we Christians and Muslims appreciate gift of intellect, which is common. Number two, if we Muslims and Christians Make God the center of our attention, decisions, actions. Number 3. Number 4, if we are totally seeking the truth and committing to the truth, then we can be perfectly sitting in the school of God together. We don't need to have 2 separate schools. God has one school. This school may have different departments, different classrooms, but it's one school. God doesn't have 2 schools. This is our mistake, that we think every religion is a separate school of God. God has only one school. But now, within the school of God, unfortunately, people claim independence. Some Muslims think they are independent, some Christians think they are independent, Jews think they are independent. They say, we are a school of God. Like, for example, maybe a grandfather established a heritage, a legacy. Now his children claim that we are the sole representative of grandfather. The first son, the second son, the daughter, the second daughter, they all say, we are the sole representative of father. Yes, it is true that they are our brothers and sisters, but the legacy has come to us and remained with us. This is unfortunately the way most of us act. We think we have inherited the legacy of God, and we are now in charge of the school of God. Others are our brothers and sisters, but they don't have the legacy. They don't have the endorsement of God. But the reality is, the people who humbly say the legacy of God is with all of us, and none of us perfectly alone represent Him, they are closer to God. So, if there are Muslims and Christians who work for unity, and they say we don't have the perfect legacy alone, they are closer to God than Muslims and Christians who don't have unity, and they say we solely represent God. We respect others, but they are not, from God's school. So, if we have humanity and intellect and God and truth at the center of our system, our school, then we can have all fellowship in the school of God. Now, coming to our experience of Wings of Unity. So, I think we were all somehow in the school of God. Focolare, they did their best to listen to God. I'm not saying perfectly they were successful. I don't want to flatter you, but I think to a great extent you were successful. No human being is ever perfectly successful, and we should never, be pleased and satisfied with what we have made. But I, as a Muslim, see that you have been very much formed by God, because the signs that I mentioned, I saw in you. And we also have tried, maybe we were not very successful, we have tried also to act according to the will of God. We try to be rational, we try to be truthful, we try to see good things in others, we try to appreciate our common humanity, we try to be really God-centered, we tried. So, we were trained in the school of God, which is all over the world, in our own traditions, without knowing each other. But we were all in the school of God, because no one has this understanding of unity and love and mercy unless is trained in the school of God. So by looking at people, I can understand where they were educated. Okay? So, we were all in the school of God, maybe different levels. Maybe I was in the primary school, maybe you were in high school, or maybe someone was in university. I'm not saying, I am very advanced. But I think I was in the school of God. You were in the school of God. Then we found each other. And we recognized, without even maybe being able to understand things clearly, and without being able to certainly articulate it, but we realized that there are lots of similarities. There is resonance. One of the turning points was, as I told you before, in February 2015, I told you, we had to stay extra days in Lopiano. And, because my wife's passport was stolen, everything. And those extra days that we didn't want became very beautiful and very helpful in understanding my relation with Focolare and our role in the plan of God. One of the things we did in those extra days, which we didn't have any plan for them because we didn't know we are going to do, but then our Focolare brothers and sisters, when they saw we are there, they helped us to do. We visited the house of the priests. Is it Vinmier? Vinyarmier in Chisa. So my wife and I and Paul, we visited, and then when we were going out, one of the priests offered drink. And I said, I shouldn't say no to myself. I said, I welcomed. So we thought just it is going to be a cup of tea, for example, or coffee, but it turned out to be very beautiful conversation. That up to today, I am benefiting from that conversation, which maybe, last half an hour, 1 hour, was very beautiful. And this idea of the school of God came to my mind in that meeting. Although, just when Piero talked about a school of God, just realized it was very important for Chiara. But at that time, we didn't know about what Chiara said about the school of God. So one of these priests asked me, what is your understanding of Focolare, your experience with Focolare? And then when I tried to explain to him my experience with Focolare, there are some historical facts which are, of course, are very clear, when I met first, second, etc. But when I tried to talk about the significance of my relation with Focolare and my understanding of Focolare, I myself understood better. It's amazing that, when you want to explain something with, honesty from your heart, that God gifts you not only the people who listen, but also yourself with better understanding. This is why maybe one of the reasons that in Shia seminaries, our learning and teaching are together. So from the first year I had entered COM, I started also teaching. So now I have been in seminary for decades, but also I have been teaching for decades, because you learn something and then you teach to someone who is lower. It's very interesting. So anyway, when I was explaining to them, I myself became more aware. I told them, for me, Focolare are, I make it very short, I don't want to talk about this too much, but basically I said, I see in Focolare a consistent spirituality. I see as if they are one body. The Focolare are like one body. And this is what, in our traditions, it says this is what believers should be. Believers should be like one body. When one part of body has fever, the whole body supports it. When there is pain, it's for all body. When You cannot sleep, the whole body is not. So I felt there is such unity among focolare that they are like one body. There is circulation of blood in the body. Every part of body, if produces something, puts in the blood, the rest of the body takes. If they need something, they take it from the blood. So there is sharing, there is circulation of ideas. And I have noticed and observed in focolare how they share in, monthly meetings, word of life experience, in, every year responsibles going to Rome, spending time with Chiara for 3-4 weeks, lots of exchange of money. So I said this is like one body. And also among the characteristics of helpers of Imam Mahdi in the end of time, we find that they are as if brought up by the same father and mother. And I said I have seen this. They can be Italian, they can be Korean, they can be British, they can be German, African, but they are like brothers and sisters from the same father and mother. They imagine if a couple adopt 3 children from very young age. If you adopt a child from India, a child from Africa, a child from US, but from early age you foster them and school them everything, then they look different, but their esprit, their behavior shows down from the same family. So I said, I have seen these things in focolare. Plus, I know that in the end of time, God has a plan for unity. I said, God has sent different prophets and messengers to different parts of the world. God has sent Moses, Abraham, Noah, Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, and many prophets, 124,000 prophets to different parts of the world. In different times, they spoke different languages maybe. They addressed common issues and uncommon issues. We have thought later that each of them was independent from the rest, or at least from those who come later. We thought there's a school for Jesus, a school for Moses, a school for Prophet Muhammad. But in the end of time, we will have only one school, and that is the school of God. And all these great leaders, these great prophets, examples, all will be in harmony with each other, teaching us together. In the end of time, a Muslim or Christian or Jew would have no list of hesitation to benefit from these figures. Because it's a school of God, and God has had different teachers. So, from that point, I realized that focolare must have a role, without them maybe knowing, in plan of God to reach that school of God. Therefore, when few months later, there was Mariapolis of UK and Ireland together in University of Hope. This is 2000, I think, 15, 16, there was Mariapolis. I was invited to talk. And thanks to God, recently we found miraculously the audio. John Green he said I was outside as volunteer. When you were talking, I came in and sat and recorded the audio. We had put camera, but it didn't work. So now we realized that he made the transcript, and New City in UK published it recently. So in that talk, for the first time, I said at the end, I as a Shia cleric think that this spirituality of focolare is for all human beings. So it took me about 18 years to be confident in saying this. I was never suspicious. I was always friend, good opinion. but I was not ready to declare this. This was a risk-taking. Yeah, but I think when you are confident, you should take the risk. If you have enough evidence, you must take risks. If you don't want to take risk, you will never progress. You will remain stuck. And sometimes even you lose what you have, because there are some decisions that if you take, you can continue, otherwise you will collapse. I took that decision, and from that point, I did my best for unity. Okay? Then that was followed by, me going to Lopiano, suggesting to Piero, we talk to each other, Wings of Unity started. All of them started after, in my heart, I took that decision of declaring our unity. So, what has happened since then? I summarize it. But this is the most important part of my talk. Because from now, with your help, we want to understand what's next. Okay? So, please be with me as you have been, and with your unity, help me to take this last stage. So, up to that point, we can say that we were brought up and we were, studying in the school of God without knowing each other, without even knowing that we are under the same training. Yeah? I never thought that the same person who is training me is training Piero or Benny or, my Focolare. Okay? We thought we are in the different seminaries, different institutions, We didn't know, or we didn't pay that much attention that we are in a school of unity in different parts of the world, different traditions, but the same authority, which is God. I think God was training us. And then, when it came to know each other, we tried to introduce the other people who were in this school to our own people. So I have tried to not only talk about Focolare, but take people actually from Iran and then later from all over the world to Lopiano, to Monte, here, to show them Focolare movement, spirituality. I try to send them to Lopiano and Sofia for learning. So now recognition in the school of God has started between parts that they thought they are not parts of the same system. Like you have been cousins, but you didn't know that you have such cousins. You thought you are strangers. So now, without any hesitation, I introduce Focolare to my people. I tell them about their good qualities. I say I am happy, and you should be happy, to learn from their good experiences, good practices. And then we made this point that any person who is studying with me, who is either studying in person with me or in our online program, Kauthar Learning Circle, which is an online program for the Shia community in the English-speaking part of the world, from US and Canada mostly, but also other parts. Everyone who is studying in Com or other places, online, in person, should be introduced to this movement. We made this decision. And to Christianity, because this movement is coming from Christianity. So from March 2017, if I want to be more precise, because later maybe these things will be recorded, first was February 2016, when for the first time I accepted to teach my community interfaith dialogue. Up to that time, many times people ask me, you are so much involved, teach us about this. I was refusing. In February 2017, I accepted to offer a 2-day workshop in Birmingham on interfaith dialogue. Isra was also there. My wife was also. And in that workshop, which was for 2 days, one of the things I did, I asked Focolare to come and have a presentation of Focolare, and I said I am introducing some of my best people to each other. I am introducing my Shia brothers and sisters to my Focolare brothers and sisters, and you should keep in touch. Since then, we have very good relation between Shia in Birmingham and Focolare. And then in March, we had the first trip to Switzerland. We took a group of, I don't know how many people, maybe 15, 20 people, to Beausset with World Council of Churches, and then to Monte with Focolare. And then Lopiano, then Mariapolis Piero, and we tried to continue. So if we went to Monte and then to Mariapolis Piero, we didn't forget Monte. Every year we tried to go to Monte till it closed. Otherwise we didn't stop. Every year we tried to come here. Every year we tried to go to Lopiano. Regularly we met in Welling Garden City in UK. Then we went to Latin America. We went to Mariapolis Geneta, to Mariapolis Leo. God willing, in September we are planning to go to for the second time to Brazil, to Mariapolis Geneta, and then Recife, another Mariapolis. So what has happened is that now it has become part of the formation for every person who studies with me to be introduced to this unity, not only in classroom. Not only I ask, for example, Benny or Roberto, for example, to teach them online, or I ask Carlo, for example, to go to Com for a month. He was there. But I also bring them out to these Mariapolis centers to see them and also to see our unity. So, we started 3 PhD programs. 2 of them completed in unity, joint supervision. The first one was a Catholic, the second was Shahnaz, the third is Sister Isra. The students are Catholic or Shia, supervision is joint. So this is also a sign of work within the school of God. Now we are training some people especially for working for unity with Focolare. Even we asked them to learn Italian. 12 people for a year, more than a year now, they are learning Italian. They are learning Christianity, they are learning Focolare spirituality. They had all the 4 Gospels online with Rabbi. Line by line, he was teaching them. They were in November, December, 8 of them who got their visa. We want to all of them, but 8 got visa for a month in Lopiano. So these people are especially being trained to work with Focolare inside the Catholic Church, inside the Christianity, but the front is Focolare. So you see, we have not reserved any energy, any resource, and we used everything available for us to nourish this unity and make the school of God more magnificent by removing unnecessary partitions. Instead of having a smaller schools, we try to make it more bigger school. These partitions are not only physical. These partitions are mental, theological, spiritual. So we have to remove these partitions and let God be, able to more freely work for our unity. We should let God's hand to be open and don't say, God, please don't do this because this is questioning our theology. For centuries, we thought this way, you are, challenging our theology. No, let God be free in educating us for his plan for universal fraternity. So, what is possible now? And I think what can help in moving forward towards having universal school of God is maybe we should start somewhere a formal reality, a formal presentation of the school of God, like a replica of a school of God. Okay? Mariapolis centers are replica of a united world. Yeah? They're supposed to be a sample of united world. Still, they are at very early stage because still they are not able to show united world. They can show united family of focolare, which is amazing. I am full of love for this. But from being an example of united family of focolare to be example of united world, we have long journey. Yeah? But we need also a replica, an example of a school of God, where, for example, Shia can learn the most authentic understanding of Shia Islam. We don't want to dilute or compromise. And a Catholic can learn the most authentic Catholic teaching. I never want my Catholic friends to dilute their faith for unity with me. Please never ever compromise anything about your church teachings to unite with me, whether you are Catholic or Protestant. It breaks my heart if I see you are less Catholic or less Anglican or what. I want your identity to be as clear as possible, and I love that. It's like I don't want my sister to become a boy for unity with me. I love my sister to remain my sister, not become half sister, half man. So, we are not looking for any compromise in our teaching, which is for mind. But then, in the same school, we can have lots of common teaching when it comes to heart. When it comes to heart, it doesn't matter you are Catholic, Protestant, or Shia. When it comes to humility, when it comes to kindness, when it comes to hope, when it comes to peace. Two interesting examples just happened. We have some of our Shia sisters and Benedictine sisters here, thanks to God, who were present. I talked about hope in Subiaco. And I especially wanted to talk about hope about the end of time, when we are facing challenges of this time. When I finished my talk about hope, I asked people who were there, especially my Christian sisters, this question was for them. I said, I am comfortable with you. When I talked, did you feel this was a Muslim imam or could be also a priest, a Christian priest saying the same thing? Of course, I mentioned some Quranic references, but my main talk, did you feel, was it always coming to your attention that you are listening to a Muslim imam or it could be a Christian priest? And sister said that it could be a Christian priest. Then Sister Rosa, who is the responsible with the abbess, I didn't know. She was supposed to come, but when I was talking, I didn't notice. So she came half through my talk and was for the rest of the talk. And then afterwards, she was showing, lots of appreciation. And she said, you asked this question, and I can say you are a messenger of hope and you are a bishop. My Benedictine sisters are here, they can correct me if I misquoted. And not only that, she said, can I confess something? And she said, when you were talking, I was thinking that it would be great if you accept to come and invite all our sisters to give the same talk to them. Okay? And then another example is that when Father Joseph talked about peace, and today actually we had planned to have conference in University of Nairobi, which is now going on, about peace in Islam and Christianity. And I was going to send a recorded lecture or a paper because I was supposed to go back to Iran yesterday. I asked Father Joseph, could you please go to this conference and instead of me sending a recorded message or paper, you present on my behalf? And he said, if you say, I will do it. And now he's there. So, what is this? These are examples from God that a Muslim can talk about hope for both Muslims and Christians. A Christian can talk about peace for both Muslims and Christians. Are we compromising anything? Have we forgotten any doctrine, any teaching? No. But our unity allows us and indeed allows God to work. And I am sure if they hear a priest talking about peace in Islam, he would be doing better job if me as a Muslim talk about it. Because they would say, maybe this Muslim has to say nice things, Or if I talk about focolare or, Christianity and show my admiration, is more powerful than you talking about yourself. Yeah? So, we need to have as a replica, as an example, a school of God is universal, but we need to have a sample of a school, an educational school, where we have Muslim students, Christian students, each take their distinctive classes and teachings, but when it comes to a spirituality, to unity, to be a better person, when it comes to virtues, they can be benefiting from joint teaching, from the best resources available, best teachings of the saints of both traditions. And I can tell you, I may be wrong, but I tell you with thinking. So it's not I am just throwing something out there. I think 80% of our teachings can be common in this school. Because 80% at least is about heart. So if we want to teach them how to become a better person, to be loving, to be kind, to be brave, to be modest, to be peaceful, etc., we can work together. We can have a Muslim teacher, a Christian teacher, or only, for example, for this subject of humility, we can say, okay, this is taught by this Christian brother. We don't need to repeat everything from a Muslim perspective. But for this subject, for example, a Muslim can teach. For some subjects, can both of them teach? It doesn't matter who is Christian, who is Muslim. In Wings of Unity, many times we heard from people that they say, we didn't feel who is Muslim or Christian. Even I think here some people said, like one of the sisters maybe said that, sometimes we don't feel who is Muslim or Christian. So, we need to work for making that possible. I think now is the right time for having that replica of God's school and learn all the modalities of this, and when we are established and confident, then we can take also a student from outside our traditions and move towards a school for all humanity where they learn love, peace, and work for universal fraternity. I don't think any school, no matter how good it is, if it is only Catholic or only Muslim, would be able to educate people alone for universal fraternity. If we don't establish that fraternity among us, We cannot help God in teaching humanity how to be universally united. So we pray to be able to be open to God, because I don't think God needs to be forced to teach us. God is waiting for us to open and prepare. God is more than willing to teach us that. But we have not been open. So we pray to God to help us with opening up and letting Him use us as His agents for making this school possible. And I would also humbly request you to share your thoughts, your ideas, and whatever you think we can do together so that we can make this happen. It would not be for any person or any tradition. It would be only for God, and then for all. Thank you very much.